This is Gayula Iris R., a BLIS 3A student.
Chapter 8. Historical Research. Historical research is undertaken to answer questions concerning causes, effects or trends relating to past events that may shed light on the present practices or behavior. Nature and value of historical research.
As used by the Greeks, history meant an inquiry designed to reconstruct past events, and, in a sense, historical research can still be defined as a scholarly attempt to discover what has happened.
Chronology.
Chronology can be defined as simply the describing of events in the order of their occurrence, a process similar to the older concept of historical research.
History has two dimensions, both of which are important to the interpretation of historical data. First,
one dimension is historical time, or the chronology, which takes into account the spacing of events and patterns. The second dimension is historical space, or where events occurred, example, geographical location.
Importance of historical research to librarianship. Basha and Harter indicate historical research can contribute to the body of knowledge about librarianship. It can increase our understanding of how, when, and why past events occurred, and it can expand our appreciation the significance of these events. Gorman and Clayton note,
historical research can help to gain historical understanding of the long-term development of library collections, inform budgetary decision-making, provide a basis for decisions concerning services, and inform an investigation of changing information culture.
Types of historical research. Hillway identifies 6 different types of historical research or documentaricity.
1. Biographical research. 2. Histories of institutions and organizations. 3. The investigation of sources and influences. 4. Editing and translating historical documents. 5. Studying the history of ideas. 6. Compiling bibliographies.
Sources of historical information. The data gathered in historical research can come from a wide variety of sources. Among the more commonly used are the following.
1. Official records, such as laws, deeds, annual reports of organizations, charters, and newspapers and other periodicals. 3. Eyewitness accounts of events. 4. Archives. 5. Manuscripts. 6. Letters and personal diaries. 7. Biographies, autobiographies, and memoirs. 8. Historical studies. 9. Literary writings. 10. Oral evidence. 11. Memorials. 12. Catalogs.
Virtually all written sources of historical information can be categorized as either primary or secondary documents. Primary sources. Primary sources represent the data which lie closest to the historical event. They are considered to include the testimony of eyewitnesses or observations made with one of the other sensor by some mechanical device. Secondary sources. Secondary or secondhand sources may be considered virtually everything not viewed as primary. Library-related primary sources may include
official records, government documents, manuscripts, newspaper articles, letters, and statistics.
Secondary sources.
Textbooks, journal articles, histories, and encyclopedias.
Evaluation of historical sources. The assessment of the last criterion competency should involve 2 basic processes: external criticism and internal criticism. External criticism, or the gathering of external evidence, is done to determine if a source in fact provides authentic, primary data. External criticism may be used interchangeably with textual criticism, and usually takes into account the provenance or origin of a document. Internal criticism. Internal criticism is generally more challenging than external criticism, and it too is often difficult, if not impossible, to achieve with absolute certainty. Basic steps of historical research. 1. Identification of a problem of historical significance. 2. Collection of background information. Literature review of the secondary sources. 3. Formulation of a hypothesis, when possible, more on this later. 4. Gathering of evidence or data, including verification of the authenticity of the primary sources and the validity and reliability of their contents. 5. Organization and analysis of the pertinent data, more often qualitative than quantitative. 6. Interpretation of the findings or the drawing of conclusions. The hypothesis in historical research.
The use of a hypothesis in historical research helps to increase the objectivity of the study and minimize researcher bias.
In addition, the hypothesis a natural and useful device in the historical method. Collecting the data. The data collection technique for historical research, or at least for documentary research, basically involves putting together in a logical fashion the evidence derived from documents or records. Before beginning a historical study, the researcher should have a specific plan for the acquisition, organization, storage, and retrieval of the data. The presentation of findings. In writing the historical report, the researcher should take care to be objective and to preserve intellectual honesty. Library history. Historical research conducted in library and information science has often been referred to as library history. Shiflett defines library history as a rubric that covers a myriad of topics associated with libraries and other information systems. Basha and Harter note that library history is commonly applied to an account of events that have affected any library or group of libraries, as well as to the social and economic impacts of libraries on their communities. Bibliographical research. Systematic bibliography. Persons involved in the compilation of systematic or enumerative bibliographies are concerned with the book and other materials as an intellectual entity. 1. Universal bibliography. A bibliography that includes everything published or issued in a subject field, regardless of date of publication. 2. National bibliography. A bibliography that lists everything published and possibly distributed in a given country. 3. Trade bibliography. A bibliography compiled primarily to aid the book trade by supplying information as to what books are in print or for sale, when, where, and by whom they were published. 4. Subject bibliography. A bibliography that lists materials relating to a specific topic. Descriptive bibliography. Descriptive bibliography is concerned with the book as a physical entity or material object. Sir Walter Grebb, quoted in Eton, once defined descriptive bibliography as follows. Bibliography is the study of books as tangible objects. It examines the materials of which they are made and the manner in which these materials are put together. This process can be broken down into more specific bibliographical research, including the following. 1. Analytical bibliography, which is concerned with the physical description of the book, in order to determine the details of the physical process of its manufacturing. 2. Textual bibliography, which focuses on certain textual variations between a manuscript and the printed book, or among various editions. 3. Historical bibliography, which deals with the identification of original editions and the placing and dating of individual books. Problems in historical research. A variety of problems are common to most types of research, but tend to be particularly important in historical research, including the following.
1. Deciding how much data are enough. 2. Improperly selecting data. 3. Relying too heavily on secondary sources of information. 4. Investigating an overly broad problem. 5. Failing to evaluate adequately the historical data and their sources. 6. Failing to interpret the data. 7. Reading the present into the past even though the historical data may not support such an interpretation.
Reflection.